Welcome back to the Inclusion Revolution. As you know, we're being joined by my guest from Entrepreneurs with Disabilities Network, Brian Aird. Brian is the Executive Director of the EDN, and he's really a fantastic resource for anybody with a disability looking to become an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur and business owner. Now, just before we broke, Brian and I were talking about these mini mentor moments, and assuming that a person has gotten past the mentoring and really seen what it takes and desires to become an entrepreneur, I was hoping, Brian, you could provide us with a real story or an example of a best practice or a real success or revolution in how to approach entrepreneurship for a person with disabilities.
Absolutely. There are so many different examples, so many amazing things that
Pick one you like,
Okay,
Brian.
there's a really cool one that just says someone's just made a huge inroad. We met with someone, she joined our organization around 2 years ago, I guess, a year and 3/4 ago. Has a learning disability, didn't want to read, didn't want to write, and she probably had a little bit of fear of leaving her bare minimum amount of money she was receiving to survive on.
Right.
But she did also have this innate passion to want to take control of her financial future. So she had the fear and the passion combined kind of thing.
Sounds like everybody else.
It is so common. They're always in different levels, but they're always there. So this person came up and she had a learning disability, and the whole thing about business is everyone in the world says, do a business plan, do a business plan, do a business plan. And the reality is that do a business plan frightens so many people. And if someone has a learning disability, they have trouble reading and writing, boy, that's a scary deal. So we do a lot of work with what is the reality of a business plan. It's really business planning. Whatever it is.
In other words, we don't have to get the book Business Plan for Dummies, because the bottom line is that in your mind, the most important thing is to say what are her barriers and what are the realistic things she can do, and how can we get this forward moving without this so-called formal business plan.
And what are her skills?
And what are her skills and strengths?
As a single parent with low money coming into the house, think how amazing she is at planning. She does Christmas presents for her child.
On a low budget.
She does groceries, their medical costs, their unexpected things. She doesn't have a Visa chart, no charge card.
She's highly creative if she's living with a learning disability and overcoming.
And so we look at coping mechanisms, we look at her skills from financial management and awareness skills. When we don't tell her what she has, we help her discover how skillful she is. So anyway, this person got over, it's so cool, she got over the fear of writing a business plan because she thought, oh, at first we will write a plan for her, heaven, right? But no, we won't write a plan, but we'll work through the process and review and give feedback. So she was so cool. Every week on clockwork, she did a portion of part of her planning. And at the same time, she was starting her business very slowly, very on a modest budget, just whatever she could do. And she was phenomenal. And if she made $41 over 2 weeks, say, in revenue, she would actually apportion a certain percent for her living, for buying new inventory, and for unexpected expenses.
So she'd already had her plan fairly well laid out, it sounds like.
Well, and
that was part of the working with you in building what is her business, I don't want to say business plan in a big B, but more of a small B business plan of how it's going to work for her.
Yeah, I think so many aspiring entrepreneurs do know. They do have a plan, they just don't realize they have the plan.
So Brian, how many entrepreneurs are stopped at the door with this whole business plan thing? I mean, whether they're, specifically entrepreneurs with disabilities, especially when we talk about cognitive disability or just some of the other barriers that they might face, how many are getting to that business plan concept, which intimidated me at a time when I was starting a business?
More and more are getting through it. It used to be that they would stop, they would talk to a lender, a banker, someone who had money, they'd say they need to do a business plan, and
they would get discouraged and it was over.
And that would, so
the change is
less discouragement because there's more resources for people. There are more people saying, hey, try this avenue, try this route. We're an advocate for...
So in other words, with advocacy agencies such as yours for entrepreneurs, it's become more possible to get through this business plan piece and move on to the actual, I'm going to start my business. And whether that's $41 of revenue a week or $4,000 a week, the concept's the same once you've got the basis down. So entrepreneurs are coming to you and they're saying, Brian, what do I do?
Well, also I want to say quickly,
go back to
some of our members can't access cash. Their credit is so bad, for example, because they've had no borrowing. So they have no credit history, or perhaps through an illness, an accident.
Tough way of starting a business.
Totally. And so we work with them two ways. One is an advocate to work with the lenders to have them realize, okay, even if they have no credit history, they still are good financial management. So the old criteria of credit being a good sort of example of how good you are with money isn't always the same. Nowadays, you don't need the same credit score, perhaps, to access some cash, if you have a few things in place.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, we have we have a situation right now with the economy. You were telling me about this lady, for instance, and it's a great story of how she overcame all of that stuff. We have a bad economy, and all kinds of people are closing. So how are you responding to those small entrepreneurs who are still looking to move forward, still looking to start a business, but frankly, in this economy, everyone's afraid to move. Nobody takes a step.
Absolutely.
How do we move forward?
And people don't move forward when they get discouraged. So if I'm applying for a $10,000 loan and I refuse it, I may get discouraged. So we work really closely with aspiring entrepreneurs to say, okay, do you really need the $10,000? We give them examples. The one person we know who's a really cool entrepreneur in Nova Scotia started his business with $1,000, say. Bought an old truck, did a plywood sign, and he's now really successful. He has 22 employees and he's doing really well, kind of thing. Richard Branson started with £1,000 was his investment in England, and now he's doing fairly well.
Well, I know there's lots of people that are well known who live with disability. My personal favorite is Bill Gates. I don't think many people know that Bill Gates lives with a form of autism, Asperger's, and I definitely, you mentioned Branson, I believe he's got dyslexia as well as some other cognitive disabilities. And one of my favorite is the owner of JetBlue Airlines, because he's got various disabilities. And for those of you who know about JetBlue, it's an American airline, and they do things very differently, which doesn't surprise me because he's ADHD, and often people with ADHD are outside the box thinkers.
Oh, absolutely.
So these are people who'd be great entrepreneurs, people with disabilities, because they're creative, because they've had to deal with all kinds of barriers throughout their whole life, and when they can connect with an advocacy agency like yours, then they have some guidance to take them through what I call the continuum of service. And when we come back from the next break, I'd like to talk a little bit about that continuum of service, because as you know, I'm a firm believer in the fact that when we start with someone, how far are we willing to take them so that they're successful, and at what point do we leave them? And that sometimes becomes the problem. I know with clients I work with in employment and agencies I support, one of the big challenges is now that they're there, how are we going to keep them there? How are we going to sustain? And that's really, really important to me. So since we have a few minutes before the break, I would like to maybe do that, because I thought we were going for a break, but whatever. Let's keep talking.
So let me, go back to this other example of the person. So a learning disability, afraid to do a business plan, all that stuff. She's grown her business organically. And she got to the point where she was ready to apply for a loan to get a larger machine to take care of some of more clients. She got amazing big name clients, really huge big ones. And she started doing okay. Not profitable, but the sales were going up, kind of thing. So she applied for a loan, a $10,000 loan, and she was able to get it. And she got it with some support of people around her, kind of thing. And so the important thing is make sure it's success now. Like keep going. So it's not like she's on her own. So we continue with the mini mentor moments. That's the key thing. We continue, she accesses a peer network. So she talks to friends. She accesses as many networking opportunities as possible. And this is what she's doing. She's developed friends who are also entrepreneurs. And so not only are they doing things together, but they're talking about business obstacles and business things.
So what I would like to talk about, and we really will take a break momentarily, but what I really want to talk about then is the idea of how we can keep that success going. Because as you know, we've both faced in our careers seeing people get up, get started, get rolling, and then disappear. And my fear has always been, are we supporting after we get them up on their feet?
Ask me about the peer advocate we're doing.
I'm going to do that.
You.
When we come back with Inclusion Revolution, we're going to talk about the new role that EDN has developed in order to ensure that continuum of service. We'll be right back.